now we are ready. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Simona Binko and I'm from the Czech Center, and we are really happy that I can welcome you to this artist and curator talk at the Czech Center with Marie Tomanova and Thomas Beachdel on the occasion of the exhibition Live for the Weather, which is an official part of the European Month of Photography. Marie Tomanova is a young Czech photographer and artist living in New York. She emigrated 10 years ago, which was a quite significant decision for her artistic career, and it was in New York where she started to take photographs. And her pictures all somehow involve the search for identity. And she, in the past years, she exhibited in the United States, in the Czech Republic, but also in Japan or here in Berlin. She published her works in a book and also in quite a lot of interesting magazines. And together with Marie, we have here also the curator of the show, Thomas. He's curator of her exhibitions, he's art historian, and he is a professor at the Hostos Community College of the City University of New York. He will also guide you through the whole evening, so I will let him speak and present more of the works of Marie. Thank you for coming, to you and to you too.
Well, thank you, Sim, and thank you, Czech Center Berlin, for having us. Thank you, Berlin, really, for having us and making it possible, something like this. We couldn't all be in a room together in many different places, particularly the United States, right? So that's what I'm going to say about that. I really do appreciate how this situation's been handled here. It's the first time I've been without a mask inside for, what, 4 or 5 months? I mean, it's been kind of amazing. So I'm enjoying that freedom here. I guess what I want to say is thank you for coming. And we're going to structure this evening in a little bit of a, I mean, it's maybe a little complicated, maybe not. First of all, what we're going to do is we're going to watch this short film of Marie's, which is called Live for the Weather, which is some of her early work from 2005 to 2010. I'll get to that in just a minute. And then I'll speak on it a little bit. Marie might talk about it. Then we'll watch the film. The pictures are these right here, taken from that film, and I'll explain that. Then we're going to talk about this series of work that you see on the wall over here, which is called It Was Once My Universe. And that's work that Marie took in 2018 after she went home. She'd been working in New York as a photographer. She couldn't go home due to immigration issues, and she goes home, and it's not what she thought it would be, right? And so this is very powerful work. It's about her going home and about her feeling displaced in her own home, distanced from her own home and family, whereas this work is about her being right there. So we're going to talk about that next, and at that point there will be another film. This is an excerpt of a larger body of work which we have as a film and prints. Only like 5 or 6 of those prints are here, but we have I think there's 48 to 54 in the film. We're not going to go through all of that. Marie will talk about some of the works. We'll start it and we'll go through it, and she'll comment on some of these works as we go through, and then we'll stop that at a certain point and then talk about, of course, Young American, which is the big grid way in the back there that you can see out the window, for which she did the book and which was the subject of her first solo show in 2018 at the Czech Center, New York. So again, thank you, Czech Center, New York, for that. In fact, thank you, the Czech Republic, right, for giving us Marie and these shows. And then we're going to speak about the latest work, New York, New York, which are those bigger photographs on the wall back there. And while we do that, we might play the other film here, which is called New York, New York 2. The first New York, New York was shown at Pragovka Gallery last year this time, fall 2018. 19. And this has got 130 images. So we're going to just let that kind of loop as we talk. And then we're going to end with, you know, questions and connections with all of you, like maybe a little bit of a discussion. I hope that you're not shy. Because again, I think the essence of the work, and if you take anything away from this at all, is that Marie's work is really about connections between people. I mean, that's really, really at the very basis. You know, you're going to hear me say it over and over again. She's going to say it in different ways, I'm sure. But it's really about that connection between people and sort of this empathic connection, this identification, this tolerance, this love, all of that stuff. So I guess I guess I'm going to just start the film, unless you'd like to say something about the work first.
I'm just going to try how this microphone is. And I just want to say hi, everyone, and thank you for coming. I'm very excited to be in Berlin and to be able to show you my work. And I guess we can start with the first short video, which is the oldest work, which is very personal and special to me, so I hope you like it.
Oh, before I tell you a little bit more about this work, I will say that, you know, I remember when Marie and I had looked at the pictures, and there was one there where there was a fire, if you remember that work, and maybe you don't remember it, but there was a little lens flare there, and it was red, and I still remember Marie looking at me and saying, "It's a heart," right? And it's just this heart, and that meant a lot to her, and it really touched me at the time. I met Marie when I was giving a lecture at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. She sort of just joined on, and afterwards we started speaking, and we started talking about art. We went to see the Francesca Woodman show, and at that point, you know, she said she was really inspired by Francesca Woodman. And in fact, some of the self-portraits in nature she was doing, or came to be doing, were inspired by Francesca Woodman. And she has one where she's hanging from a tree. It's called Homage to Francesca Woodman. It's a really beautiful picture. We didn't include any of that in this show. But in any case, you know, she was inspired by Francesca Woodman, so she started taking pictures. She went to SVA, she took classes, she bought a camera, she started taking pictures and showing me all of these pictures. And really, they were really about her trying to fit into the landscape in a way, like seeing her in some place. And she's doing an EMOP takeover and a master class for the Czech Center. So some of those pictures will be in there if you go there and look at that when those things come up. You can get the details from either Sim or Marie, I'm not sure. In any case, I started looking at her pictures, and you know, that was that really, until I saw this body of work here, and she showed it to me, and it was pictures that she took from 2005 to 2010 on a little cell phone. And very quickly, I'm going to let her tell you that story because she tells it better than I do, of course. But in any case, she was taking all these pictures of her friends, and I had looked at the pictures, particularly that one of her best friend, Marky, where it said Split, right? Split, what? Well, I guess it's Croatia, right? They were hitchhiking to Croatia. It was about being young. It was about being in the moment. It was about carpe diem. It was living for the weather. I mean, whatever it was, they were just right there. And that's the namesake for this show, like being here now. And as a matter of fact, we'd planned this show a year ago and gave it a title, but it's taken on even more of a relevance now in light of COVID, where, you know, I mean, what you have is right now, and to embrace that and celebrate that is really important, or to feel it, whether it makes you feel happy, sad, distressed, anxious, you know, all of these feelings. And so all of these feelings are here. So I will say that, but I was very impressed by the work. You know, I was very impressed. It reminded me of Nan Goldin. It reminded me of early Ryan McGinley. I'd really kind of never seen anything like it. It was so raw and powerful. I mean, and she's got thousands of these images, by the way, so I'm sure you're going to see more of it at a certain point. We did a show together, co-curated it at the Czech Center 2017, right? I guess it was called Baby, I Like It Raw. This together in 2017 from pictures that had been taken between 2005 and 2010, when Marie thought she was a painter in the Czech Republic and struggling with that. She'll tell you about that. But really, she was taking pictures. And a very good friend of mine, a woman by the name of Mitra, you know, had said, you know, yeah, Marie thinks she was a photographer when she came here and started taking pictures to the United States and after Francesca Woodman. But really, the fact of the matter is she was a photographer in 2005, 2006, 2007, 8, 9, 10. So I think that's really important to remember. So I'm going to let her speak because, you know.
Thank you, Thomas. I really appreciate all the beautiful things you said. Well, first of all, I never thought these pictures will be ever shown. They were all shot just for myself as a personal journal. There was no Instagram back then, you know, not really social media. Selfie wasn't a thing. So it was just running around my little town with my friends and taking pictures of everything that was happening. There's a kind of a fun story how I even got to have a cell phone with a camera. I married a man in India who was a friend of mine and helped him to stay in Europe. And for that, I got to go to India for a while, which was amazing because I haven't left my small town since then. And I also got to buy a phone. So I was one of the first people in my small town who actually had a phone with camera and could take those pictures. It was a very special thing for me because I used to write journals a lot, and all of a sudden I could just snap pictures and keep the memories alive for myself and all the, you know, moments that were so important for me. And I never thought of it any more than that, and until I was in United States. And you know, I've been in United States for a while by the time I went back to this archive. And I couldn't go home because of the visa situation. So, you know, just sitting at home and all of a sudden looking at all of these thousands of pictures of my hometown, my friends, everything that I left behind. And it was very special. It was very touching. And I was myself surprised how raw the images were because, you know, they were not shot to show how great life you are on Instagram or anything like that. They were just the real moments as they were happening. And I'm glad we got to put this series together out of it. It's a lot of, you know, friends, lovers, everything that you go through in your 20s and you deal with. And this is the first time we framed it and put it in, basically all of the pictures are in here, or like 99% of them. Framed, yeah, and I think it works really nice as a visual series like that.
As the story goes then, you know, Marie's in the United States then, you know, 2011, 12, 13, 14, and she's taking self-portraits in nature. She feels, you know, she feels apart from her hometown, I guess. This is just all secondhand knowledge. She can tell you that as well. You know, I'm just setting it up for you, right? Or setting it up for Marie. And she's taking these pictures. And, you know, of course, she takes self-portraits in nature because in Mykolaiv, she, you know, grew up in vineyards and playing in vineyards and, like, you know, drawing in the dirt with a stick and supposedly working and helping out around the farm and things like that.
Except Thomas makes jokes that I always just stood around with the little camera and taking pictures because there are pictures of all of that.
Well, you know, because you brought it up, I'm going to say this, all right? When I went through these pictures, I guess there was a huge pile of rocks, and I guess they had taken down a chimney from their house. And there were hundreds of pictures, not hundreds, right? But of her mother moving the pile of rocks from one side of the yard to another. Marie says she helped around the house, but it looked kind of to me like her mother did all of the work while she must have been on the roof taking these pictures. In any case, it's a small thing. But she, you know, she's in the United States and she's taking pictures. She takes pictures in nature, and then really, you know, so she becomes sort of more comfortable in the United States in like the physical landscape, the geographical landscape, the natural landscape. But I think she still feels a little bit like apart from the social landscape. You know, she has a job that doesn't bring her in contact with a lot of people. So then she starts taking these pictures of people, and that's really where the connection comes in. That's the young American. And you know, a lot of that is about her sort of feeling like, you know, she feels like an immigrant in this country, and these are people that she seeks connection with or connects with or aspires to to have something with in a way. And that's the Young American series that we'll talk about in a minute or two. But what I want to do then is say, okay, so after 8 years, she goes back to Mykolaiv. She finally can go back to Mykolaiv in 2018. And so, you know, you'd think, oh, wow, this is a great homecoming. But she goes home, and we get these pictures over here. We get the way to school, which is the first one over there. I can't tell, the great thing about the picture that I can't see that's behind that column right there is that, you know, I don't know whether it's dawn or evening. You know, I'm caught in between. I don't know whether I'm waking up or going to bed. I don't know which way I'm really going in it. And that's really a beautiful aspect of it. And then, of course, there's her self-portrait in the tub, and then Willie with horses, that's her stepfather. And, you know, in her parents' life, like, it's animals and horses and goats and all these things, and it's like they set the rhythm of the days. You know, it's like, I mean, the horses run the schedule, the goats run the schedule, nobody else does. And then, of course, you know, it's the Lichtenberg Palace over there in the Sphinxes, and then there's Mykolaiv in the snow from the Holy Hill, and then there's Marie at the end there in the quarry that she used to go to with all of her friends over here, and she's in a coat that her mother had made during communism, right? And, you know, because I guess you made your clothes then, right? So her mom made this coat. She goes out there, she wears this coat, you know, trying to pick up parts of her past in a way. And we're going to run the other video in just a minute, and you can see a lot of those things. And is there anything else I want to say? There is. Marie was very uncomfortable there. And, you know, you see the date stamp in some of those pictures. You know, that date stamp is still set to New York Times. So while she's in Mykolaiv, Czech Republic, taking these pictures of, you know, a life that once used to be her universe. That's what it was called. It once was my universe. It was her universe. And now what is it, really, is the question. The date stamp is still set to New York, so it's lying to you, right? You know, a picture is of something that's in front of you right now, so you're right in that moment, but then the time lies to you, right? It's just symbolic of this idea of displacement and confusion, and maybe some of you have experienced it too. You know, going someplace that you used to know, you used to feel comfortable, you thought would be one way, and you go back, and it's actually another way. And I mean, really, what's changed? Have they changed? Have you changed?
I think the other part of all of this story is that when I was in the United States, when I went there, I thought I'm going to be there for half a year, maybe a year. I came to the United States as an au pair, so nothing really that promising, right? I studied to be a painter, which I didn't feel successful as a painter in Czech Republic, so didn't know what to do. Left as an au pair, and I thought, you know, half a year, I'll make some money, and then I go back home and marry the guy that I was with, and that will be my life, right? Well, it ended up being 8 years before I returned, but the whole time in the States, I kind of didn't feel like I will be there for a long time. There was always the feeling that I will leave anytime, you know, that's just something that I don't fully belong in there. So I always had some money left in my socks, hidden, you know, in case something goes really wrong, so I can fly back home. And I idolized my home and everything that I left. That was just really so special to me, and I felt I can always go back home and I can always be there. But after 8 years, when I finally returned, it was a very strange, confronting situation of seeing how much changed there, or how much actually didn't really change, and that I changed, and just kind of all my friends are in different place as well, and kind of being confronted with your home that all of a sudden doesn't feel like you belong in there. So those series for me are really about discovering my home and my past, and looking at where I'm from through a whole different angle and through different lens. And the camera is really amazing tool for that. And I was glad and kind of set up this thing that I would take pictures every day. When we were back in Czech, I was there for 2.5 weeks or so for the Christmas. My mom actually got married at that time as well. They waited for me to come home after 8 years, so you'll see some of those pictures in the projection as well. So it was a very emotional and special time, and seeing my nephews, which you saw one of them in the video when he's really small, and the other one was even more of a baby. Once I came home, they were as tall as me, and that's where you really realize how much time have passed and what it really means. And yeah, that's kind of it.
Why don't we play the video, and you can comment on some of these pictures.
Let's do it.
They're up there for 8 seconds, so whatever you say.
Yeah, we probably won't go through the whole thing because it's like 12 minutes, which would be a little bit too long. So that's me in the backyard in my old jeans and my dad's sweater, which is very special. That's the one thing I have left after my father, who died 2 days before my 16th birthday. So I kind of treasure that sweater. Those are the chairs that my mom always and my stepfather sit in. It was just really about photographing things that are things I would normally not pay attention to, but coming back home, all of it seemed so precious in a way, and I was so glad to see just the most basic things, like, the yellow blankets that I grew up with that they don't have in the United States, that are very special to Czech Republic. Larissa, I don't know how to call it in English, but all of these things and memories and the past that curls up and all of a sudden confronts you in a whole another way and a meaning. Yeah, we were just around the house a lot and in our garden, and we have a little farm, so, and this is all the spots that I used to go with my dog. I had a dog that you saw in the previous videos that wasn't there anymore once I came back home. And my stepfather is Myslivec, Jägermeister, right? That's how you say it. Yeah, just kind of the casual things of life that you appreciate in a whole different light all of a sudden. Yeah. That was on the way to my mom's wedding. That's the nephew who is all of a sudden taller than me. Everything, the old pictures that you remember from your childhood hanging in the living room that are still there. Knedlike. So I did a lot of walking through the old paths. That's my old hair. Being in the States at different times throughout my life there, I would have these random places pop in my head that I remember from, walking to the school every day for 8 years, to gymnasium, through the same route. There would just be these places that pop, and I really just felt need to revisit them and see them again. So it was, when I went back home, it was a lot about that and seeing those places. And that is my mom's wedding. So the pictures in the video are not chronological, but I did shoot every day, and it was also interesting for me to go back with a camera shooting film. I shoot Yashica T3, Yashica T4 and Contax T3. It's a whole different experience than what I did before in Czech with this little cell phone. And actually the pictures from the cell phone are each just like 70 kilobytes. It's just beyond me how small the files were and how the technology moved. that's the luggage where all my socks and underwear were, and all that was left, most of it was eaten, and then there was some corn, and I guess that's the place where all the mice were that my mom couldn't figure out where they are coming from, because she kept everything in my room as it was when I left, and it just became a blast. Lots of horses. All right, Thomas, should we stop the video and move through the next body of work?
We could, yeah. I mean, I guess I will just say, and I'm not just saying this, I'm very touched by this body of work. I mean, I'm really touched by all of it, but in a certain way, it's just, to me, it's very evocative. It feels very poetic in a certain way. It feels, again, similarly raw to the earlier body of work, Live for the Weather. And it also feels a little sad to me sometimes, right? Like as an outsider looking at it, it just feels like it's just a little sad. I feel that, I see that. Whether it's really there or not, I don't know. I mean, sometimes, it's about what you see in the picture, right? Not what I see or not what Marie sees. That's important. So, but again, I suppose what's really important is if it somehow communicates something to you. So I guess we'll switch gears and go into the Young American series. And we opened the 2018 Czech Center show, Young American, with another film install of 222 images called So Far from Mykolaiv. And 222 of those kids back there on that wall that you see as a grid. I'm sorry, I don't have images up here on the projector for
that. Yeah, so that is an excerpt from that, yeah.
Yeah, so that's an excerpt from that. That was the basis for the book, Young Americans. So there was a show in 2018. And then, believe it or not, Marie, one of our heroes is Ryan McGinley. And believe it or not, she went to, actually, let me tell you this. We'd scheduled the show, I think it was on like the 28th of June or July 2018. And then we heard, oh, wow, like Ryan's got a show. Oh my God, I hope it's not the same day, right?
Because everybody goes to Ryan's show.
Because everybody goes to Ryan's show. So ours was the day before, Marie's was the day before. We went to Ryan's the next day, and she says to Ryan, oh, will you come and see my show? So here is this moment where Marie is, a young photographer who had the guts to go up to like her hero, right? And I will say this, because I think this is very important.
I was terrified.
I think it's really important. She really had this aspiration of being shot by Ryan McGinley, and she went and she asked him to come to her show. He came to her show. He sat through the So Far from Mykolaiv video, which was 30 minutes long, like 3 or 4 times. They talked, they related, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to say it, Marie may say it, or maybe she's a little bit, too modest to say it, but the fact is that at that moment, that was a huge moment where she felt validated as a photographer. And as a matter of fact, I think this is a really important thing to say, and we haven't really been saying it enough, that she was validated as a person, rather than just like maybe say like, and I think it's important for women, I'll say it as a man, even though you should probably say it as a woman, right?
I've been saying it before.
It's like, well, you want to say it?
Well, it was a really important moment for me because I actually ended up in North Carolina for my first year in the United States, and then I didn't know where to go for the second year, but I saw Ryan McGinley's photos online, a nude girl holding a wolf, and I just fell in love, and I was like, I really need to go to Ryan's show and meet him and hope that I will be photographed by him. That was like my biggest dream I could have think of. And then I decided I'm going to move to New York for that. So I moved to New York, and I was really just too shy to somehow find him or like meet him until 2018, many years later, when I had this show up, and I went to his show and asked him if he will come to see the show. And it was really important for me to see that he saw me as a photographer. He loved the pictures. We actually photographed lots of similar people because, believe it or not, even New York is small. And it was a very important moment that I wasn't just somebody else's muse, like hundreds of other people he photographed, but I could have been somebody that he sees as a colleague, which was for me unimaginable before that, and it really meant a lot. And after that, Ryan wrote the introduction for the book, which was really amazing. And I thought, you know, that he will write like 1-2 sentences, and he actually wrote a whole thing. I was like, wow, this is really amazing. And I did actually get photographed by Ryan at the end, few months later after that, which was also amazing and great experience. But I'm really glad that it had all of these other aspects, and he in a way became my mentor, which is amazing, and I'm just really grateful for it.
Yeah, I think that sort of support is really important, but I also think that idea of like sort of like, you know, I had a student and her grandmother, you know, her mother had died and her grandmother, you know, wanted her to be a nurse. And this student, I mean, she came in, she got straight A's and everything. I mean, and I said, you should, you know, try to be a doctor. Because like her ceiling was that nurse. You know, that's as far as she thought that she could go. And you know, she's, you know, in a program for getting her MD. And I'm not saying, oh, you know, but it's really important to go further than you think that you can go and not set these limits for yourself. And you know, I think, you know, a lot of these young American pictures, again, we could talk about the idea of Marie meeting these people and like this connection between the people. And, you know, when I wrote the essay for the book, I just thought, oh, you know, like, or chose the images for the book, it's like there's this connection, there's something there. I didn't know what it was, there's this connection. I couldn't always say it was like, you know, an intimacy. I couldn't say it was always like this, I don't know, it's just there was something there. These people were in front of me, but there was some human identification, and this is where Marie's work goes even further than some others, and it verges into that René Dijkstra type of thing where there's this empathy between the photographer and the subject. And ultimately, if there's an empathy between the subject, or the photographer and the subject, i.e. the people that she photographs, then when you see that photograph, you're brought into that. And so, you know, in a way, if there's positive hope or change for that, it's not necessarily people who, you know, already identify with these people, but to look at these people and say, oh, all of these people are just like me. I mean, there's a lot of people that I'd really like to see Marie's photographs and look at them and say, wow, there's something there. And there are these people who are just like me. I think that if we had something like that, you know, the world would be a much better place. You know, we have to just sort of, you know, take a moment to remember what's going on with Breonna Taylor and all of that, which is really just heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking how other people, some people can't see other people as people like themselves. And Marie's work is all about people seeing other people like themselves and this connection between all of us. I mean, you know, in a way, it's easy. We're just human, you know? And that's the essence of this work. I will say, I didn't plan on reading this the other day, but, you know, Tomas, who's the director here, liked this quotation that I pulled from Ryan's introduction to Marie's book at the opening. And Ryan says, quote, "This is a future free of gender binaries and stale old definitions of beauty. In Marie's world, people can just simply be. I wish all of America's youth culture looked like Marie's photos of downtown, diverse and inclusive," end quote. And I can't say it any better than that. That's why I'm reading that, right? I mean, Ryan just hits it on the head. I mean, what does it matter, right? What does it matter who you like to sleep with, what color you are? I mean, all of this. I mean, really, it's just, we're human. And so that's the power. And I know Marie's edging to say something here, but I'm going to say one more thing, because one of the, and she's probably going to say this, so if you are, when she showed this work at the Czech Center in 2018, again, it was a big projection, and all these kids came, and they saw themselves there. And in a way, I think that to see yourself there validates you not as some sort of like, you know, perfected individual, but validates you for who you are, right? Like, you know, you're okay who you are. You're okay who you are. Not like made up and da-da-da or whatever it might be, or pretending to be something else, but exactly who you are. really exactly who you are. And then one more thing. We took this work to Olomouc, to the film festival there, and we projected these kids 23 feet tall on a Jesuit monastery, right? The Jesuits were the people who went out and spearheaded the evangelistic movements that sort of pushed Eurocentrism, imperialism, and colonialism into all the areas of the earth, right? And we projected these kids up there, in a way taking over that space, claiming this space for these kids. At the same time, even, you have to recognize then too, that even in a projection 23 feet tall, that Baroque architecture of imperialism dominates, right? And it's still there, right? And so those hegemonic patriarchal forces.
Yeah. I think that what is important for me in the Young American work, and what has been the reflection I'm getting from lots of people and when I'm at the openings, is that it brings people hope, which is something that I'm always surprised and happy, very happy to hear. And I hear it a lot from older generation as well. When they come to see the show, they see hope, and they see hope in these young kids who are the future. I mean, these are the kids who will grow up in America and hopefully will move things through a different direction than where is it going right now, because right now the situation is really not where at least I want it. So it will be a little difficult times in the States right now, or have been since the pandemic. Then Black Lives Matter, which was very important, and I hope there will be changes through that, and that will happen through that. And now the presidential elections, so it's a very turbulent time. And all of these kids, because if I may say, the newest work, the New York, it's all shot in the summer, and early summer, late summer, when it was finally possible to go out and see people, at least outside. So being, in a quarantine for weeks, months in New York was hard, and all of a sudden seeing friends or making friends just was the most precious thing you can do, because I haven't seen people for a long time, and then just doing a simple thing as strolling around East River and taking pictures and talking and sharing stories was something that seemed like the most important thing in the world, because we were still alive and we could still connect and be together, at least outside. And the human connection and friendship is something that I lacked in the United States on the beginning, because when I came to New York, I didn't know a single person there. And as Thomas said at the opening at Czech Center New York in 2018, it was just mind-blowing for me, because I was showing over 300 portraits of kids I photographed in New York, and most of them came, and there were so many people, and everybody seemed so happy and excited to see their pictures really big. And it was just amazing energy in the room, and it was almost as, celebration of them and who they are, and us together and the community. And, I kind of found for myself what I left in, few friends in Mykolaiv. All of a sudden I had so many friends in New York, and that's the most important part for me in all of that and in photography, because I am actually kind of a really shy person. So before I left to the States, I would not approach strangers or ask you for anything. To stand in front of my camera would just make me very I'm asking you too much. But in New York, I guess I learned, that you need to stand up for yourself a little bit more. And I realized that through photography, I can meet people and I can make it happen. And that was the really, for me, important thing about all of this, is to find friends, make connections, and keep being creative and making pictures. Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll use the microphone. That was very nicely said. I don't have anything more to say, really. I mean, you can just see the pictures. Do you have anything else to say?
I don't know. Can we do questions?
Yeah, I think we should do questions. Please talk to her. You can talk to me too, but You know, again, New York 2, Alana, Tosh.
Like, if you have questions, please come to the front. We are streaming it, so it would be great if you have it in the picture.
That's always
So don't be
encouraging.
shy, as Marie is.
It's always encouraging.
Hey, so maybe you can talk a little bit about the process of when you meet these people, how you meet these people, like how the conversation starts and then how you shoot them.
So lots of the kids I meet either at openings or events or just on the sidewalk in New York. I very often see people I want to photograph in the subway, but it's kind of too intimidating. Ask somebody in a crowded subway. But lots of people I also approach through Instagram. And most of the time when I meet people that I photograph, I see them for the first time in person. So it's really important for me to talk to them first. Also, for them to be comfortable and for me to be comfortable, I really just kind of want to know who they are and give them a little bit of who I am, I guess. The good starting point in the United States is always where you are from, because most of the kids came from someplace else to make it happen in New York, to, you know, basically they did what I did, just came to New York to find their community and make their dreams happen. And what I think also Ryan mentioned in the introduction is, he said that it's one of my superpowers to be Czech, and the way how I see it is that lots of these kids, they don't really know what Czech Republic is. You know, they don't really have set idea about it, which means it opens up to a lot of like, wow, where is that? What is it? How is it? You know, so we can kind of really just hit it off with background and you know, where I'm from and where I grew up. And then I learn more about where they're from, because there's so many places in US that I've never heard of, which, you know, is the same story again. So yeah, I usually, for you know, these kind of portraits, I spend 2 hours with the people. Most of the time we talk about, you know, hour and a half, and then I shoot 2-3 rolls of film. And usually we meet again, which is great. And I like to keep, you know, people who are around and are in New York, I like to keep in touch. And with lots of people I shoot over and over. And for my most favorite is, of course, Kate and Odie, because they're just so funny and they're in so many of my images, and I can at some point do book just on them. Kate is Czech, so you know, we really kind of, she's my Czech friend in New York. Very few of them that are actually Czech. Yeah, so that's how I more or less work. I shoot 2 or 3 rolls, you know, then usually shoot them again, just, you know, to kind of keep in touch and, you know, keep it going. And when I do some editorials, I like to go back to all these kids from the street that I know, rather than, you know, some models or people that I, you know, don't connect with. So a lot of these people eventually ended up in big magazines, and we were, you know, always super excited about it. And it's like, yeah, it's, yeah. Thank you for the question.
And if you go elsewhere, do you also shoot there? Like
in other places?
Cities, other places?
Yes, I try to. We were in Tokyo for a while last year because I did this is in Tokyo, yeah. I did a book launch and exhibition in Tokyo last summer. Yeah, I took lots of pictures. It was great, but very often I'm just like, because, you know, I'm so like, swept away with the new city, new place, and everything is so new that I can't really concentrate on the people that well. In New York, I really love looking at people, and I love being around people, and I know New York really well right now, so it's just more about for me, about the people, because that's what's constantly changing in the city. The structure of the city is the same, but the people are always new, so that's something that I really like about New York and enjoy there.
How did your family actually in Mikulov did react to that you came with a camera and wanted to document everything?
Well, the funny thing is, at that point, Maruška Dvořáková, who is a Czech filmmaker who won the awards, Oscars, she started to do a documentary on me, which she's been working on for a long time. She started in New York, and then she wanted to film when I was coming back home as a part of, the documentary. And my mom really doesn't like to be on a camera. And all of a sudden, even before I got home, Maruška went to our home. She didn't know, never met my parents, but she showed up with a big camera filming, and then they together went to pick me up at the airport in Vienna. So my mom was like, oh my God, what's happening? So for this visit, when I went back home after 8 years, Maruška Dvořáková was filming the whole time and was with us. And yeah, there's going to be at some point something out of it, which I'm myself curious to see, because it will be I will be able to see it from the outside, kind of what was happening. It's going to be interesting.
Do we have other questions from the audience?
Hey, it's not a question, I just want to say something to add to all of this. It was a really nice talk, thank you. And I didn't know about you, about any of this till like, I don't know, a few days ago. And I just came to see it. I saw this looks like some snapshots from New York. But all of your story make me, I haven't been at home for like 6 years now. Mm-hmm. And it's made me, because it's really reminded me of my old photos, and it really made me want to go back home to open these albums to see it. And thank you.
Thank you. Where are you from?
I'm from Israel.
Nice. Wow. So you haven't been home for 6 years?
Yeah, I've been living in Thailand and now for 3 years here.
Wow. Yeah, you're gonna have a great time. It's confusing, but it's great. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, it was very nostalgic, all this talk and the photos all together.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, there's something about like home that you really have in your heart and in your mind and how you remember it. But then actually if you live someplace else and see lots of other things and then come back, it all of us seem like it's different than I remembered it, which is, I guess, that was the shocking part for me, that I remembered. For example, I really used to love fashion. I was an art student. I studied painting, so I always dressed kind of crazy, and I bought everything in the thrift stores, right? And I remembered all my clothing being so amazing and awesome and chic and great. And then my mom, of course, kept everything the same. So I went back and I looked into all of it. I was like, wow, it all has holes and stains, and it's really worn and really kind of, I don't know, just worn old with stains all over it. But I remember it so awesome. And it's just seeing a whole different part of world and experiencing new things and just how your perception changes. And that's kind of the thing that I was confronted with. And that was the moment for me. That was something that was hard to capture in the photos, but at the same time I kept shooting and shooting because I didn't know how else to deal with it in a way. Yeah, so yeah, you should go home. Oh, I know.
You could also speak from the floor too if you're too shy to come over here.
See, and these are all the kids that are hanging out in Tompkins Square Park now. It's the new generation. So what was happening, I guess, or what was interesting to watch this summer in New York is that there were not really international students, not really any tourists. The city just kind of emptied out, and all of a sudden all these locals appeared, you know, the people that you normally don't really see because they blend in too much. The park is full of young kids and really the local new scene that's coming up and all these skaters, and it has an amazing energy of the real New York. And the people that are my friends in New York who have been there much longer, they're referring to it as the old New York, which of course I don't really remember, but I see it as a special time. And I shot a lot this summer because it just had this amazing youth energy of, people who grew up in New York and who are the young New York.
So if there isn't any other questions from the audience, last chance. I would like to ask a closing question. So what is your next big dream?
Oh wow. The next book. So yeah, I've been working on the next book, which I can't wait to work on some more so I can put it out. So hopefully you will hear about that within the next year or two. It's going to be a big project, but that's my next big thing. If anybody who's watching is in New York, I'm actually opening an exhibition in New York, in Chelsea, in the C24 gallery on Saturday, in 2 days. So that's going to be called On the Inside. It's lots of portraiture. I'm showing some of my work along with other amazing photographers. My favorite one is Pixie Lau, who's in it, which I love. So that will be a good show. And yeah, then we'll see what's happening next year. I'm supposed to have shows in Europe, but we'll see where we are with all of this.
So thank you very, very much for this nice talk. I think we all could hear 2 more hours and we would be satisfied. And if you are interested in Marie's work, you can follow the takeovers, like the Instagram masterclass on the account of the Czech Center. It will be, I think, on October the 7th. And there will be also a takeover on the account of the European Month of Photography, which we don't know the date yet, but just follow it. And Marie, welcome.
And thank you all for coming. I really am glad that you were here, and I'll be hanging outside for a minute. If you have any other questions, we can always talk.
And I just want to say one more thing. Thank you, Sim. I mean, this is the person here who really made this happen. I mean, the Czech Center did, but she organized it. We sat and talked about it a year ago, and we didn't know it was going to happen until a couple weeks ago. I mean, really, and the fact that we actually got here, she figured that out. I mean, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, everyone.
I'm more than happy to do that because I really love the show.